And we will follow up with our first panel of the day. And for it, we gathered leading voices. They will be introduced during the panel on CBDCs in motion. And I would like you to welcome back to the stage our host, Jonas Gross, and his esteemed panelists.
Great. So please, everybody from the panel, feel free to join me here. So I would like to welcome, first of all, Alexandra Hachmeister, Director General for the Digital Euro at Deutsche Bundesbank. And great to see you back. Then Agnese Gentile, Digital Euro Unit Advisor of the Banca d'Italia. And then we have also here Luca Cassetti, the Secretary General of E-Commerce Europe, so bringing more the e-commerce perspective in. Then to the very right, Jan Rosam, partner and European Digital Euro lead at EY. And last but not least, Jan Haas, who is the head of digital money at MSG for banking. So thank you all for joining. And let's go into the discussion. So I think we have set the scene pretty well in terms of where we stand today on digital money topics, right? A lot of initiatives are happening, a lot of progress. We are coming more from theory, from concepts to practice, as we laid out, with standards being developed, technical readiness being ensured, technical solutions being built. And this is what we will focus on in this panel, really on the digital euro and how we can also drive adoption, what's needed to make this a success. So maybe starting with you, Alexandra, as the first question, like maybe you can tell us a little bit more again on the why. So why is the digital euro being built, but also how can it maybe contribute to some strategic directions where the European Union is currently heading?
Thank you and good morning to everyone. And I know that everyone eagerly listened to what Jürgen Scharf said, so I'll try not to be repetitive and basically focus on, I think, two aspects that are very relevant and that you don't see in the product. And I think that makes it tough because people always look at the features of the product, and this is a feature you can't feel. And the two I'm going to talk about is autonomy and resilience. And I think what Jürgen didn't stress, but is our reality, is the geopolitical challenges that we're facing. And in that sense, we're talking about strategy, that we're saying we need a functioning European infrastructure, right? You're not going to see that in the product, but you're definitely going to feel it if anything goes wrong. And we know these days the world is changing quite rapidly and unexpectedly at some times. So what I think for us as Europe to do is to ensure that we get this thing done. And I think you said that in your opening speech. This is, yes, we have come to the decision, so we are less talking about the if and more about the how, so it's implementation. But there are two sides to the implementation, right? One is definitely a political process that needs to be solved this year. I think we're seeing very strong signs out of Brussels that we're making progress, and we're actually counting on it. And the second thing is definitely the technical and operational side. Everyone in market infrastructure knows that you can talk a lot, but you need to build it. So I think we will come later to this in the panel, but there will be a lot of things around the pilot and how we are going to approach to really build a strong infrastructure and a successful product.
And let's maybe directly go deeper on that, Alex. Like when you say the pilot, right, which is currently expected or will be done next year. So I guess you prepare a lot on the back for that. You talked about building the technical stuff that we are talking about. So what is it that you currently, like you and the team, the Eurosystem also as well, have on the roadmap and is being done? So what's the stuff you are, you're working on?
You compliment me if I miss out on something, please. I think what we have done, first of all, and that was a deliberate decision, that was to really start the implementation phase on the 1st of December. And that means technically, as we are not building the infrastructure solely as central banks, which we do for the target services, for example, that's completely built by national central banks, we're using a different approach. So actually it wasn't only us that had to start the work, but it was also other service providers that had to start the work. So to be very, and I know they will be very technical, but we had before Christmas our first PPI planning. That means you basically get everyone in a room And you need large rooms for that. And to ensure that every component that needs to be built can really be aligned and that you can agree on what are the first steps that you do in your first sprint. Right? So it actually is getting very technical, and on the development side, that means you need a development environment, first of all, before you can develop, right? And as I said, the second thing then is we still need to do a lot of work and explain ourselves on the political side. So it's two things.
Yeah. Okay. And to go a little bit more into deep, or do you want to add to that, or going into the next one?
I would say that we have started our, let's say, new phase of the Digital Euro project, thanks, of course, to the we have successfully completed our, let's say, first part of the preparation phase. The ECB Governing Council decided to go ahead in October 2025 with the second part of the preparation phase. And in this second part of the preparation phase, we have three main goals. We have the first goal that is actually to continue our development in terms of functional, operational development, technical development, and this is where the pilot is coming into place. So what we want to do is to go ahead with the preparation and, of course, assess on our side whether we are technically, operationally, and functionally ready.
Great, and let's dive a little bit deeper on the pilot. Agnes, like what is the key, key things you want to achieve out of the pilots? What is being tested and what is kind of the key outcomes you hope to get from the market and also from the tests?
Of course. Allow me to first, let's say, clarify a couple of points. As I said, the pilot will be the first exercise being conducted by the Eurosystem, so the ECB and the NCBs. And this first exercise, it's not preempting any decision to be made by the Governing Council on the first issuance of the digital euro. And this will be made only upon approval of the digital euro regulation. So let me just make this clear. The second part that I would like to clarify is that we will not be testing the digital euro as part, of course, as coming out of the legal framework, because, of course, we know that the legal framework is ongoing. So what we will be testing is the so-called beta digital euro, which will be having characteristics from a technical perspective, from, let's say, a functional perspective that are similar to the digital euro. But, of course, we will not have the regulation in place. So it will be a digital means of payment being issued by the Eurosystem, but it will not have legal tender status. As I said, it will have characteristics that are similar to the digital euro that will be in place in the future once approved, the digital euro regulation. But of course, the legal framework is not yet there. So this is just to clarify. In terms of what we want to achieve in the context of the pilot, of course, what we want to assess is not only whether we can issue the digital euro, but what we want to see and what we want to test is actually whether we can actually make it work. What does it mean? It means that we want to see whether we are prepared from a Eurosystem perspective to a first potential issuance of the digital euro, from an operational again, from a functional perspective. What we want to also assess is whether the ecosystem is ready. So what we want to see is actually whether there are constraints, there are problems, that there are issues, and we want to be there and see how we can support based on the outcome of and the feedback that we will be receiving in the context of the pilot from the PSPs, how we can support them and how we can collectively overcome them. Last, but of course not least, what we want to also assess is whether the digital euro is actually fitting for purpose, meaning that we want to see whether it meets what are the end user needs, and in this case, being simple, being usable, being straightforward and easy to be accessed. So these are the three key questions that we would like, let's say, to have an answer to in the context of the pilot.
Okay. And we also heard from Anne-Sophie that currently it's of course also possible when you're looking for participants for the pilot, right? Because we know here also a lot of banks, payment service provider, merchant, e-commerce companies, are here. So maybe the follow-up question to Jürgen is who can participate in the pilot, and also how, what do the companies now have to do to participate?
Thanks for the question again. Of course, as I said, this is the first real-world testing, of course, the beta digital euro. As Eurosystem being the first test, of course, we wanted to start small, focused, and of course, controlled. This means that we will be testing a prioritized set of use cases, person-to-person, person-to-business use cases. We will be testing for the person-to-person, both online and offline, and for the person-to-business, we will be testing remote payments, and of course also proximity payments, so point of sale, e-commerce, and commerce. We want to start from core functionalities being developed and of course tested in order to scale up in the future. And as I said, not being a first market rollout, we want to start in a controlled environment. And this means that the pilot will be run in the context and in the perimeter of the Eurosystem central banks and the ECB. We will be having a limited number of participants in terms of end users, merchants, and in particular the end users will be the employees of the NCBs and the ECB, buying food, goods, and services from the merchants within the perimeter of the Eurosystem central banks. When it comes to the merchants, of course, the merchants will be also those having a relationship and providing goods and services to the Eurosystem NCBs and the ECB. In terms of numbers, as I said, limited and contained number of end users and merchants and, of course, employees. Speaking of numbers, we will be having between 5,000 to 10,000 employees being involved. When it comes to merchants, we will be having 10 to 25 merchants. And, of course, the contained number will also apply to PSPs. We will have a limited number of PSPs participating, and as you mentioned at the beginning, we have ongoing the call for expression of interest which will conclude on the 14th of May, and of course we invite all the PSPs being eligible to be participating in the context of the pilot to apply, because of course they are the key players when it comes to providing and supporting the Eurosystem in distributing the digital euro. Allow me just to conclude. Of course, I don't want to forget the TSPs. So in this case, not being directly participating in the pilot, they can in any case support the PSPs in, of course, offering the digital euro service. So you can see that in the context of the pilot, we will be having quite a number of, let's say, actors involved of the ecosystem of the digital euro.
So definitely a call to PSP banks and merchants to be active and to apply. Okay. Last question on the pilot to you, Alex, before we go in broader discussion, talk about adoption requirements. Like, when now the pilot is run, like, what does success look like? So when do you think, okay, yes, this is working? So what's the desired outcome or the reality check?
I think the desired outcome is on several layers, and I think Ness mentioned some of them. I think, first of all, this is a public-private endeavor. So we are preparing for when reality or the introduction is going to happen, right? So this needs us to develop that trusting relationship to ensure that operationally, in the framework that we're working, that we try that out, right? I think that is very important, and how this will evolve during the time of the pilot will give us a good indicator how smooth it will be once we're in introduction, and we want a smooth introduction. The same thing is actually, when going through a pilot, it will allow us jointly to learn. We might actually adapt I think everyone, we have done lots of research, how things should work technically, from a product design perspective, everything. But only once you try it, you will learn from it. And I think this will provide a great value to us to understand, is this actually fit for purpose, as you put it, right? Does it do what we want it to do? So it is actually, for me, it would be a success if we find things that don't work. It might sound a bit absurd, but you know what I mean, right? You want to find out in the pilot and not afterwards. And I think it will also ensure to develop the trust basis of it, right? It is really technically and operationally speaking, this is a huge endeavor, right? We're talking 21 member states in the Eurozone. We're talking all the different stakeholders that you have mentioned. There's a lot to gain for everyone. And we are really doing a bit of a dry run here, but trying to get, the product out. So I think success is that we, it will be a tough time, I guess, but success we will realize when we are through it and say, okay, now we feel ready to get it really done.
And this is a great transition to come to exactly that stakeholders, because we've heard it before. To make this really a success, we need the stakeholders to be involved, also to be aligned, also to be somehow happy on what's coming in some form. So Luca, coming to you. So we of course know that the e-commerce merchants generally are of course a very important stakeholder group around the digital euro. So what is kind of your perspective, and what can you or the stakeholder group of e-commerce kind of gain through the digital euro?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. If I can maybe quote Ryanair's slogan, what we need is low fares made simple. If you ever flown Ryanair, you probably remember it. So low fares made simple. I thought about it just a couple of days ago preparing for this panel, and I thought, yeah, it might work also for today. So basically what merchants are looking into is low costs. And I have to say here that we are not alone in this. As e-commerce Europe, we are working as a merchant payments coalition. So the right name is Merchant Payment Coalition Europe, and in there you will find, besides us, also Eurocommerce, EACT, which is the Corporate Treasurers Association at EU level, IATA, Independent Retail Europe, and SME United. So it's a wide group that is very well aligned on the points that I'm going to mention right now. So we have proposed caps to fees, to ensure that the digital euro remains a sort of a cheap solution to be adopted by merchants, basically. We would not like to see hidden charges, and we want to have predictable pricing. So I think that's a fair ask from our side. And our proposal as coalition is to introduce an inter-PSP fee of 0.05% with a 2 cent per transaction cap, and a total merchant service charge of 0.1% with a 4 cent per transaction cap. And for offline transactions, we propose basically a zero fee solution, basically to reflect the cash-like nature of the digital euro. Why are we proposing this? Well, simplicity first. It will meet the requirements for a uniform fee across the euro area, in our opinion. It reflects also a little bit the legal tender status of the digital euro. It will be mandatory for merchants to accept it also. It reflects also the absence of ECB scheme fees, and it avoids a transitional period, which is something that was proposed by the Council, and in our opinion, it wouldn't make sense.
Maybe to double down. This one. Thank you. Maybe to double down on that, like if we look into merchants today, right? I know you made it very clear and simple, so it's basically about speed and about cost. Like, is this the key two things that currently is in the current payment world, like, let's say, unsatisfactory for merchants? It's too costly and, it takes too long until you get the money? Or what's, are there other value propositions that you could hope to gain out of the digital euro as merchants?
Well, besides the cost, there are a few other elements that we can bring into the discussion, and also to echo what Alexandra mentioned before on autonomy and resilience. What merchants are also looking into a payment solution today is reducing reliance on international card schemes. The digital euro is, in our opinion, going to provide a unique solution across the eurozone that will make it simple, in theory, to do cross-border sales. So that's something we support. E-commerce is per se without borders, so that's something we definitely support. And it will be an alternative to international card schemes, which, as we all know, are very expensive and dominating the market, especially when it comes to cross-border payments. We're also looking as merchants into reliability. So we are looking into payments that can always go through with minimum downtime or failures, and we hope that the digital euro will be able to provide that as well, with immediate final settlement on the ECB public infrastructure, and that is going to improve the cash flow certainty for merchants. So this is also something very relevant for us. Of course, this has to go hand in hand with fraud prevention as well. It's also an important element for merchants. Conversion. We need smooth checkout experiences, and that has to be the case for both merchants and consumers alike, in a way that we are going to reduce cart abandonment. If your payment experience is not as good as your shopping experience, then your whole e-commerce experience will be not so great. Same for the delivery, by the way. So if the delivery is not going well, yeah, you might be really annoyed as a consumer. And at the end of the day, even if I'm representing e-commerce, I'm also a consumer. So, conversion, the digital euro should support frictionless checkout. That's basically what I wanted to say, and helping conversion rates. And finally, we need easy onboarding and seamless integration. So the digital euro will rely on standards, of course, and we should ensure that there is a quick setup basically for merchants, something that is easy to plug into existing checkout processes, so not too complicated for SMEs, and no heavy administration. So these are, I would say, the key points that I wanted to flag.
Okay, so kind of like speed, costs, independence, fraud prevention, user experience, that is really key to gain here.
Exactly.
Okay. Great, and let's then also talk to other stakeholder groups, and you know, you both Jans, you kind of indirectly represent the banks today because you're working together with a lot of banks. And let's start with you. It's good that you sit here and here, so I can say Jan, and I hope it works out. So Jan, let's start with you. I mean, you work together a lot with banks. So what do you think is currently the kind of readiness level? So are the banks already, you know, for the digital euro? Are they all ready to participate in the pilot? You know, to go back to what Agnes said, to just sign up tomorrow, or where do you think do we stand? What are maybe challenges or also prerequisites that we need? So a lot of questions into one.
Yeah, I try to answer every one of them. Yeah, when I look in the market, across the whole market in Europe, I see there's a mixture of readiness, I would say. So there are a lot of institutions that are already quite far. So they are already, so mainly the bigger institutions and payment service provider. They invested some money and time to do pre-analysis, pre-studies, impact analysis to see how will the digital euro fit into their organizations, what are the implications on the processes, or also the IT infrastructure or the whole payment infrastructure. I think they are quite prepared, even if there are still some uncertainties, sure. But there's also a big part of PSPs, there's the readiness level quite low. The main reason is probably the uncertainty of the legislation, as most of the boards will not release the budgets and the money if you don't have like the clear political direction. And in addition, you have a lot of parallel projects and transformation projects, different payment in the payment and banking area, and you need to resource in the budgets. So I think they are more in an observative situation currently. But if you look into the operational readiness, I think that's one of the biggest topics for the pilot actually. So the pilot, as you said, it's the first pilot. A lot of things will be tested. You will see if it works, and we learn with that. But I think it's important that you already prepared something. So if you are a PSP that did not yet anything or just on a small effort, I think then it's going to be hard probably to participate with the pilot. You need to have pre-analysis. You need to have like pre-impact analysis, and at least you need to have an understanding how the digital euro fits in your organization and where you need to adapt something. Because when you are honest, the digital euro is going to be one of the biggest projects for a lot of banks and probably for the whole European market actually. And it will have an impact on each and every area in the banks. So not only a payment area, so it's like everywhere. And you need to be aware with which departments you need to talk, which processes, which vendors, and so forth. And therefore, I think to be prepared for the pilot, it's important that we have that the legislative is at least decided, or we have a political direction, so that for maybe some other, as you said, it's beside of the legislative process, but still there will be more effort if you have like a clear political direction. The second point is, as I said, the operational readiness. You need to be prepared that you can really take part and have a meaningful impact from day one. And the third point, which is quite clear, and you mentioned a lot of stuff, is the clear scope, the clear timeline, and also the clear specifications that you can go into the project without any doubts and just do your work, let's say, like this.
Maybe just two comments to the political process. And I think what we get is during the year we will get clarity in steps. I think the first step that we will reach is as soon as we know we can go into a trilogue, it's very clear that we'll come up with a legal text, right? I think the whole point is now that Parliament needs to reach a final report so negotiations can start. I think the envisaged time plan is to get to a final version in May, so that trilogue could actually start in June. There is always, some leeway in timelines, of course, it can take longer, but I think we are in March now, we are close to April, so things are coming along, right? That can be actually pretty fast that we are coming up in trilogue. And I see what we also see is that there are quite a few positions where they are not too far off, which also gives an indication how tough could then a trilogue be, just as a sideline.
Maybe to add to this. So I think the launch of the pilot was also really the kickoff on the bank side, to be very honest. So because so far a lot of banks were involved in the rulebook development, in the working groups. They have done, they studied the rulebook, of course, understood what the impact is on the processes. But I think now with the pilot, it becomes concrete. So, and I think at this moment, I think a lot of the tier 1 banks are chasing on board level for the money, to be honest, because the pilot, and I think this is not just on the central bank side, the challenge, of course, also on the PSP banks, because I think the requirements ECB set on the PSPs are still quite high, because you need to be able to fulfill all of the use cases, etc. So therefore it means they not talk about 2028, 2029, they talk about 2027. So therefore they would need to speed up their developments quite drastically. So, and I think the big challenge is, of course, there's no standard solution in the market, because I mean the platform is not developed yet. So the vendors they are using for their payment rails are not ready yet. Of course, why they cannot be ready. So therefore, I think for those banks participating or PSPs participating, it will be quite an effort to participate in the pilot, as for the ECB is. So therefore, let's see. I'm very let's see how many will participate. So I think So we decided to set up a pan-European digital Euro hub, so which I'm leading. So we actually have good transparency across Europe. And I think it would also be interesting to hear from the central banks. Is there an idea, so do you hope that every country is participating, or is there some kind of structure you would like to see in the pilot? So, because I think that's a question for me. And at the end of the day, I think it is a challenge, and even the larger banks are quite worried about the efforts they would need to spend to participate in the pilot, but then also basically actively participating in this. But do you have a view on the structure of PSPs you would like to have?
Allow me just to start by, of course, saying that and remark the fact that the pilot is a very first exercise. And of course, when the regulation will be in place, we will have for sure chances in the future, to continue rolling out gradually the digital euro. So this is something that it's a first step, but in a long process, in a long rollout process, and it will be gradual. Of course, from a PSP perspective, we do understand what are the constraints, what are, let's say, in a way, the limitation on your side. We fully see the point. When it comes to and we also do see that perhaps at this stage, larger PSPs are those more equipped in taking part and being involved. I want to also be clear. The call for expression of interest is open to all the PSPs, licensed PSP in EU, being willing to participate and being involved. So in this case, as I said, I do see the point. But from our side, it is open to all the PSPs being interested and being licensed in the EU. When it comes to the final composition, again, a limited number of PSPs will be, let's say, selected at the end of the selection process. And what we will be assessing is also not only if they meet requirements like being a licensed PSP, but what we will be also assessing is whether the PSP, for instance, has experience in the context of pilot exercises, whether the PSPs have an operational structure in place to support the pilot-related activities, the geographical coverage. So these are all aspects that we will be taking into consideration as Eurosystem before making a final decision. Of course, the broader is the participation and the geographical scope, the better it is. So this is our aim.
Okay. Maybe a follow-up question to you, Jan, because I sensed between you two Jans, it's very difficult, like a little bit of different, I don't know, like let's say sentiment. So if I understood you, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was, you said there are a lot of challenges, for banks, also with the budget, but I heard a slightly positive twist to that, also given the progress on the legislation side. And for you, Jan, I more understood like there are way more challenges, and it's, so like where do we stand? Do we see a positive direction with banks getting ready, or is this really just being expected when the trilogue is entered or when the law is final, which could take time?
I think Jan said it correctly. So, I mean, of course, what I see, there is a difference across Europe. So we have some countries which were also more actively involved, maybe in the rule book development, in the political process. They started maybe earlier. So there were some countries, don't want to name them, which were more reluctant for a long time and maybe said, okay, maybe this will go away for whatever reason. So therefore, I think across Europe, you can see different maturities of countries on country level, but then also on entity level. So as Jan mentioned, of course, the tier ones are very much involved, but then we have a big tier 2 and tier 3 market, isn't it? So, and there it becomes a challenge. So, and I think if you look at tier 2, tier 3 market, none of them are really prepared. Maybe there was no need for them yet to be prepared. But I think that's why I said, I think the launch of the pilot was also the kickoff on the banking side to really get ready. Because people understand now this is going to happen in 2027. So, and therefore, I expect a lot of interest and a lot of activities now due the mid of this year. And then definitely banks need to get ready. Now it comes to the challenge. Of course, our borrower market is very big. So I think there's a big concern, of course, scarcity of resources. I mean, if you look at the scale of the project across Europe, if you look at how many PSPs we have and the implementation effort needed on central bank level and private sector level, so there's a big concern about do we actually have enough resources to do this, etc. So that's why we also developed different tool sets for our clients, where we support clients with AI-based tooling to do quickly impact assessments. So we converted the rule book and digital assets so people can use to get much quicker impact assessments. So I think we need this kind of innovation, to be honest. So for the whole market to get ready and also to be successful in this big project. Because as I said, standard solution is probably unlikely we have in a very short period of time from a technological perspective. Yeah.
Maybe to add something here to the point what you said with the tier 2 and tier 3 PSPs. I think they are one of the reasons why they did not yet prepare is also a lot of them are really dependent of their vendors, and as you said, the vendors are not prepared, so they are more waiting for the first pilots and that also their vendors are prepared, and then you will get a faster adoption rate actually.
We discussed about readiness of banks, and maybe one follow-up question to you, Luca, like more on the merchant side, e-commerce company, how ready, are those players? I guess there are also differences between countries, between tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, but do you have a feeling of a general readiness level? Because they are also welcome to participate, as far as I understood.
I'm not really sure if they are ready, because to be honest, the legislation is not there yet. And when you're a merchant, especially if you're a smaller one, what you're doing is focusing on running your business. So you will worry about the legislation once it is adopted. And that's a little bit unfortunate. For larger ones, I think that we have a couple of players that are actually willing into participating in the pilots. I don't know if they're direct members of e-commerce Europe or not, but we do have some large players active in Europe that definitely have the resources to try it out. So I cannot really comment that much on the on the readiness of these companies to participate.
I can probably add 1 or 2 sentences to that. Definitely, I think the larger ones, just as you mentioned, I think it's the same on the PSP side as well as on the merchant side, same pattern that we see. But we are already in exchange with larger merchants, and they are getting prepared. So we actually expect them that we have enough merchants participating. I think what is really important is, of course, that we have the relevant number of merchants and PSPs participating, but what is really important for us is that at the end of a pilot, we have tested the different use cases, right? So, and I think you very clearly pointed out that we have a selection process where we have to make sure how we cover all of that. So that is also a very relevant aspect to us to see, can we do all of the use cases that are currently in the planning?
Let's now come to one, Jan, to you again, to one stakeholder group that we as an association is also very important, which is the end users and the citizens, right? Because they in the end are the ultimate users. So banks, they distribute, merchants, they provide the solutions as well. But in the end, if no end user is using it, it doesn't work. So maybe Jan, to you, what do you think on this level of end users? Like, what does it need for them to participate, right? Maybe also, are they ready? I mean, are you talking to people? What is your perspective on that one?
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of things has been said by Luca already previously. From my point of view, so when I think with my payment behavior, so I like payments when they fits into my everyday habits. So it needs to be smooth, and from my point of view, new payment methods will not, so the adaptation with new payment methods will be reached with improvement and not really with disruption. And I think that's something what we are currently also doing. And the payment flows or the habits, they are really deeply convenience affected. So convenience is one of the most important argument, I would say. So therefore, if we have a payment system, a digital euro that fits into everyday's life situation, and I can pay everywhere I want to pay, it's integrated in my used and favorite banking apps or PSP apps with my devices, what I like to use, if it's the mobile phone, the watch, or even the card. I think that's something which is the most important topic. Otherwise, it needs to be a good user experience that is similar or better than the others that I use today. The second point is for sure the trust, which comes with the privacy topic. So this is also something what you also mentioned earlier. So if you have a payment method that is really that protects your data within Europe, especially, I think that's really going to be a benefit, especially for the offline payment. If you have then also like an offline payment that has the same, let's say, resilience and reliability than cash, then it could be that it's really an emotional benefit for the users. For example, you also like to pay cash probably, so then should be the same for the digital euro. And the third point, from my point of view, is the resilience and reliability of the whole system. So it has to be there when I need it. The offline, if you have the capability to pay everywhere and any time, then I'm going to use it. And to round it up, I think that's also the topic what you said in the beginning, is like this European perspective. So for sure, this is maybe not really a political argument from my side, but it's more, in current times, it gives you more a reassurance for a user. You have your data in Europe, you don't know what happens, and you're not dependent of global systems. And I think that's, in the end, at least for a lot of users, something which currently they are thinking about, I guess.
And following up on the end users, a question to you from a central bank perspective, Alex, Agnes, to you, both of you. Like, I guess you also do, research on the end user side. What the product digital euro needs to fulfill so that it's adopted. And you mentioned user experience. We talked about privacy, trust, resilience. Like, is this the core features you also have, like in your kind of requirements list, let's say, or is there more, or are they different?
Absolutely. I think absolutely, in the end, it's a product for our citizens, right? And in that sense, it has to be an excellent product. So it's about usability. And I think I made that in my first comments. The relevance of autonomy and resilience, you cannot see in the usability of the product as long as you're not threatened. And we have, unfortunately, some Europeans, and we have seen that with the International Crime Court, that have been cut off of their payment systems. So they had the feeling, what happens if your autonomy is no longer fulfilled? I don't want our citizens to experience any of that, just to be clear. We don't want, that they love the product because they have to fear. That's not the point. But it's something that, as central banks, we have to bear in mind all the time, right? That's our duty. That's our duty to make sure. At the same time, we have to make sure that it is an attractive product. I fully agree with you. Still, I believe, if you look at the very different payment behaviors across countries in Europe, at the very different personalities all our citizens have. We have some that are very digital prone, we have some that are true cash lovers. We will see when we look at adoption, we will see sometime how actually payment patterns, how they adapt to the product. Do they like it, yes or no? And as always, you will have some early adopters who are just curious and try it out. And the moment they try it out, I would say it better works, because that is kind of the litmus test, where okay, if I try it out and I like it, good. Because if I already have digital payment methods, it has to do at least that.
What I can add on top is, of course, on top of resilience, safety, privacy, and so on and so forth, we also have financial inclusion. And this is something that we are deeply working on and looking at. For this reason, we want to make the digital euro really, really, really fitting for everyone. So nobody should be excluded, and everyone should be able and be in the position to use the digital euro.
Yeah, so if I take the customer perspective and maybe to steer the discussion, but I think everyone who's really interested to see how the digital euro could look like should go to India. So I don't know if I guess everyone who's in the payment industry has been to India and knows UPI. So I think UPI is very impressive, and I think all the criteria you described is met by UPI. And I can highly recommend this because it can be used by tourists. You don't need to have a bank account in India. It can be, you can pay your tax fees, everything with UPI. So I think from if I would be a customer, if the digital euro would end up like UPI, that would be fantastic. But that maybe means that maybe we need to also merge the Vero initiative a little bit closer to digital euro, because if I'm a customer at the end, of course, it will be a little bit confusing. Why should I use Vero and why should I use digital euro? So hopefully, and UPI is a good example of, as you said, a private-public partnership, so that as a customer, maybe we see hopefully a convergence of both initiatives. And if the user experience is like UPI, so that would be fantastic.
Let's maybe close this panel with some kind of a quick fire round. So I like to always close maybe a very precise answer. I know it's always not black or white, and let's see if we all want to do that. But we talked a lot about requirements. But if you say for the pilot, like one thing that is a must, that has to be ensured 100%, that this is a success, and also people may use the digital euro subsequently. What this one thing be?
Maybe the commitment by the PSP, and so not only observation, but real participation.
True public-private partnership.
This is actually, you stole my words.
Two central bankers.
Exactly, we think alike. But this is what I would like to let's say, remark on from our side. What would be important is actually continuing our collaboration with our stakeholders. And from the pilot, we would like also to learn from them, to hear from them. And of course, it will be an opportunity for, listening and also adapting.
And I think also Jan stole my closing words, because I wanted to say convenience, but I will continue on convenience. I think the digital euro should be effortless to use. If paying with the digital euro is not as smooth or as even easier, ideally, than existing options, people won't use it.
I think, as I said, it's the kickoff. I think for the implementation of the digital euro as the pilot, I think would be good to see that now everyone is embracing it and starts really thinking about the implementation, the impact, and really gets started on this. So because time is short, and I think every hand is needed now. Yeah.
Very clear. So this was really a great discussion. Time really flew. So thanks so much. It really shows that we need all different stakeholder groups to participate in the pilot. We also heard this from Stefan in the beginning, that it needs collaboration in this regard. And yeah, we as an association are of course also here to facilitate that. So thank you very much. And yeah, handing back over to, can we do one question? Yeah, okay. We have 2.5 minutes left. So Tony, you were first. So let's go to Tony and then.
Yeah, great panel. Thank you very much. Luca, you said you want the merchant service charge, I think, to be 10 basis points. Is that right? Did you say merchant service charge? You want it to be 10 basis points, 0.1%? Yeah. This is small carrot for PSPs, is it not? So is this sufficient motivation for PSPs to want to participate? And then I guess it comes down to then what is the cost for a PSP? So what's not clear in my mind is the modification required for a PSP, is it only software or is it software plus hardware?
Should I start? Yeah, I think it should be cheaper than existing solutions. If it is not cheaper than existing solutions, merchants won't use it and they will not promote it. Simple as that.
I think what we have seen is actually, depending on the size of the merchant, quite a wide spread of the costs that you can endure through the different schemes that might actually be used. So I think that's actually several things. It is standardization for the merchant, right? That makes life much easier for all of them. That is also comes in when it comes to hard and software, so to say, right? If you need whatever devices or anything, if you can really standardize them. And I think the second thing is, and that is in the political process, is that from a Eurosystem side, the infrastructure that we are providing that then PSP sit on comes at no cost. That's the cost that we bear. Nevertheless, the next layer, so the merchant has to bear some cost to offer that payment mechanism as well as the PSPs. So we try to, take a strong part of the bill, and the rest have to then, fit it in there.
Maybe to comment on your second question. So I think the cost is going to be high. That's the reason why you should prepare early and start early. Because it's not only the infrastructure and the software, it's about processes. You need to think about your business model. Maybe you need to think about your payment strategy. Where can you include the digital euro within your payment strategy? And then you need to talk with your vendors. And there you have the hardware for offline payment. You need the correct hardware with maybe secure elements or whatever. So there are a lot of different areas you need to touch. And that's the reason why we always say better start early to think about it than too late, actually.
Okay, let's do one more last question. Here we have the microphone. Please, quick.
Yeah, I'll be brief. So thank you, very interesting panel, really comprehensive coverage in terms of the pilot and the retail side. I just want to bring out one other aspect, which was last year there was really good insights from the innovation partnerships which are done on the digital euros about the potential value to businesses from things like conditionality, and therefore that maybe this could help unlock some elements of further economic growth. So I'm just curious about how the central bankers are thinking about taking those insights forward.
Thank you so much for the very interesting question. And of course, as you said, last year we conducted an innovation program. 70 participants from all over Europe were participating, taking part. And of course, we have taken this exercise so seriously that, of course, we will continue along this line. So we will be, let's say, promoting in the upcoming future a new program for continuing exploring and experimenting together with the market, including the scenario that you mentioned. So we will continue along this line.
Perfect. So thank you very much for the great discussion. Thanks for the great questions. And yeah, handing back over to the moderator, Marcel. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone. It was a very insightful and cool panel. Lovely.